Alright, welcome to your asynchronous session for week 3 for Business Math B. We have lesson 14, markup based on cost. The objective is that students will be able to compute selling price and markup based on cost of a product or a service. So we're first going to look at the key terms. So we got markup is the amount added to the cost price of goods to cover overhead and profit. Market rate is a percentage which a trader adds to the buy-in cost of goods in order to get the selling price. Rate is a certain quantity or amount of one thing considered in relation to a unit of another thing and used as a standard or measure. And ratio is the quantitative relation between two amounts showing the number of times one value contains or is contained within the other. And our last one is selling price, which is the market value or agreed exchange value. So those are our key terms that we're going to use as we work through some problems, figuring out some markups and some selling prices. So selling price. The formula for selling price is we first have our markup, which is the cost times the markup rate on cost, and then we have the selling price, which is the cost plus the markup. So in order to get your selling price, you have to know that markup first. So let's go ahead and compute some markups. So first markup example, a boxwood shrub costs $50. The markup is 70% of the cost. What is the markup? So we're going to use our markup formula, which is our cost times our markup rate on the cost. So we have that our cost is $50 and our markup is 70%. Now remember that whenever we have percentages and we are doing math, we need to first change it into a decimal. So we need to take that 70%, change it into a decimal. So remember, you can either move the decimal 2 to the left or divide by 100. So we get 0.70 is what 70% is as a decimal. So now we can go ahead and multiply 50 times 0.70 and we end up with 35. So that means that the markup of the boxwood shrub is $35. So that means that the store that would be selling this is going to mark the price up to $35 more than what it cost them to buy it, so that they can cover all of their own expenses of paying their employees, their rent, electricity bill, utilities, everything that they need to cover. So let's do another example. An end table costs $140. The markup is 150% of the cost. What is the markup? So we have our markup equation again. So our cost is 140 and our markup is 150%. Remember, we need to change the percent to a decimal. So we can divide by 100 or move the decimal 2 to the left. So we get 1.50. So now we can go ahead and multiply those together, and we get that the markup is $210. So that means the company is going to mark the price up of that end table $210 before they sell it to their customers. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can do this calculation about a pair of shoes cost $89. The markup is 65% of the cost. What is the markup? Go ahead, pause the video and find the markup. So now that you've had some time to find the markup, let's go and see if you got it correct. So we got our markup cost is $89 times the 65%. So our final amount of markup is $57.85 for that pair of shoes. Alright, so now that we know markup, let's go ahead and let's do some selling price examples. So we're using the first example again about the boxwood shrub. Cost $50, the markup is 70% of the cost. What is the selling price? So we have our selling price is now the cost plus the markup. So if you remember from earlier, we found that our markup was $35. So for our selling price, we're going to take the $50 cost and we're going to add to it the $35 markup that we got. So 50 plus 35 is 85. So that means that if you were going to go buy this boxwood shrub from the store, it would cost you $85. So remember, we did the end table. So we have that an end table costs $140. The markup is 150% of the cost. What is the selling price? So again, we are going to do our cost plus our markup. So if you remember when we did the markup example for this one, we got that the markup was $210. So we're going to add 140 plus 210. So we get that if you were to go buy this end table, it would cost you $350. That would be the price that you would be paying for this end table. So go ahead and see if you can figure out what the, that should say selling price, not what is the markup. It should say the selling price. See if you can figure out what the selling price is for the pair of shoes. Alright, so now that you've had some time, let's go ahead and find out the selling price. So we had that our markup was $57.85. Add the two together. So that means that this pair of shoes is selling for $146.85. So now what about if we are given some different information? So a furniture store operates on a 425% markup based on the cost. The markup on the store's end table is $173.85. Find the cost and selling price. So our first step is we're going to let x equal the cost. So if you remember from our formulas, we have that the selling price equals the cost plus the markup. And we have that the markup equals the cost times the markup rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up an equation here where we're going to take our markup rate and it's going to equal what the markup value was divided by the cost of the product. So that's taking the markup formula and solving it so that we have the markup rate. So we're going to solve for x. So I'm going to go ahead and first change my 425% to a decimal. And I'm going to also, since I have divide by x on the right, I'm going to multiply both sides by x. So that I now have 4.25x equals $173.85. So now I want x by itself. So I'm going to divide by that 4.25 on both sides. So now I'm going to get x equals $40.91 because that's what 173.85 divided by 4.25 is. So that means that my cost is $40.91. So now I want to find my selling price. So my selling price, remember, is the cost plus the markup. So we were given our markup, we just found our cost. So we're going to add the two together so that we get a final selling price of this end table to be $214.76. So let's do another one. A candy store operates on a 95% markup based on the cost. The markup on the store's pound of gummy bears is $1.90. Find the cost and selling price. So let's go ahead and step one, let's find the cost. So remember, we're going to take the markup, set it equal to the markup divided by the cost. Then I'm going to change my 95% to a decimal, and I'm also going to at the same time multiply both sides by x to get rid of that division by x on the right hand side. So I get 0.95x equals $1.90. So now I need x by itself, so I'm going to divide by 0.95 on both sides. So when I divide 190 by 0.95, I get x equals 2. So that means the cost is $2 to the candy store for that pound of gummy bears. So now let's find our selling price. Remember, the selling price is our cost plus our markup. So that's going to be the $2 plus the $1.90. Add that together and we get that the pound of gummy bears will cost you $3.90 at this candy store. So now selling price practice. So this is going to be one of your questions on your check for understanding. So a shoe store operates on an 80% markup based on the cost. The markup on the store's Jordans is $35.35. Find the cost and selling price. So you're going to need to complete this problem. It will be one of the ones on your check for understanding. So now that you've watched the recording, go ahead and go back to the asynchronous activities announcement and click on the check for understanding link and fill out the form to get your points for the asynchronous session.